Well, good evening, everyone. Good to see some faces here tonight. Um, Pat, I usually do very brief intros and I let you better tell about you. Um, but Pat and I met through Feisty Media, I think it was originally. Uh,
hmm
but we work in similar fields and she's got a wonderful newsletter. And then we got connected through company we're both connected with, and then here we are. And I was like, wait, I know her. So I'll let you dive a bit into your credentials and things like that. And then we'll start our talk. And then I record it just for the folks that can't make it. Pat, we have a lot of moms.
Yeah.
So I put it on our YouTube and then they can go get it there.
Awesome. Great. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and having me on tonight. My name is Pat Spencer. I am a social worker is my professional background. I'm a LCSW social worker. I am a private practice therapist. So welcome to my therapy office. Here's where I sit. But I'm also an endurance athlete, a triathlete. I've done I don't know, 3 or 4 Ironman, countless sprints, Olympics, you name it. Um, but then in 2016, got really sick, stopped doing triathlons. And just a side note, I got really sick because I overtrained and didn't eat enough. So please keep eating. Anybody else, grab a snack bar, grab a protein bar, drink a protein smoothie if you need to. All right, good. All right, cool. I see we got some drinks going, we got some food going. Excellent. But I've transitioned over to doing primarily gravel biking is my love. Um, I live in central New Jersey, so we do not have a whole wealth of gravel roads. But thankfully, the gravel roads we have, I live near. Um, but just backing up to 2016 for a second, when I got really sick, even before that, I was kind of struggling with, am I the only person that feels this way? Like I'd be out on, uh, let's just say I'm going to use bike, quite honestly, as my biggest example, since that's primarily what I do now. But I'd be out on the bike and I'd be like, am I the only one who's feeling kind of a lot of self-doubt? Am I the only one who's questioning her sanity out here right now? Um, and then after the bike ride, sometimes I'd be questioning, am I cut out to do this? Um, and I work in the mental health field, so I kind of Googled, triathlete, mental health, blah, blah, blah. And I can't say I did a deep dive in Google. I did like one search. And I found nothing. And I was even in therapy at the time, and my therapist was awesome and she's great, but this is not her field, not her forte. So now fast forward to like 2022, maybe 2023. I decided to combine my love of endurance sports um, and my professional knowledge of how to help people grow mentally and how to enhance mental skills. And so I started a business. It's called Getting Your Mind in Gear, where I do mental coaching for endurance athletes, like skills and tools and tips and techniques. I do webinars like we're doing tonight, which I happen to love these things. Um, but I also do other webinars. Like I just had one on Sunday that I called Coach's Couch, where we talked about unleashing your athlete's inner drive, which is how to use motivational interviewing to really help build the skills. So that's me in a nutshell. So I was invited here tonight to talk, and do you guys mind if I show, like, I have like a PowerPoint, and I use the PowerPoint primarily to keep me on target, because I love tangents, but also a lot of people are visual and audio learners. So if it's cool with you, I'm going to share this.
Yep, you
Um,
should be able to have the
yep,
permissions
I
to.
see we're at the bottom where it says share. Um, I have 2 screens, so I'm going to really hope that I share the screen I want to share. Um, so right now, do you see a screen that says Taming the Beast, Master Your Emotions to Dominate Your Race?
Yep.
All right, awesome. I one time did a full, like, I teach CEUs for social workers. I did a full 5-hour training and nobody told me I was showing the wrong screen. So they saw my notes the entire time. I was like, oh, so now I've learned to check. Um,
That's terrible.
it was, but it taught me a very valuable lesson.
Yeah. I'm shocked
Um,
no one spoke up.
I know. I was like, is anybody here even paying attention? Did anybody notice? That was kind of my thing. All right. So, and again, I encourage talking. Feel free if you got a question, you got a story, you got a comment, turn your microphone on, jump right in. I want this to be collaborative. Um, so, whatever works for you all. So, I just want to talk about taming the mental beast. Um, and actually, before I even jump into the slide, I'm really just curious to hear from you all of how does the mental side, like the mental strengths and the mental struggles, how do they show up for you in training or racing or whatever it is that you do?
I'll say for me in training, it's been a work in progress over the past year, but it shows up in that like I have to do everything. I can't take a day off. I go when I shouldn't. So that's my struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd say the positive side of things for me is I am a big visualizer. So a lot of times when I'm working out, I'm like, if I know the course, I'm visualizing that. If I know what the finish line looks like, I'm visualizing that, like just putting myself in that race day. So that's my positive and my work in progress.
Okay. So like the struggle is taking a day off. The struggle is either literally or metaphorically being okay if you see red on the Training Peaks calendar one day.
Yep.
Um, okay. And then the way you get through it, especially on race day, is kind of picturing what does that finish line look like? What does that finisher chute look like?
Hmm.
What's it going to feel like when they put the metal around my neck or whatever it happens to be? Cool. Awesome. So I'm curious, how about others? What's your mental struggles and strengths, if anybody wants to share?
Yeah, I would say I focus on the strengths more than the struggles. I've been doing it for a long time, competing. I've always felt, for the most part, the mental piece is a strength. I do focus in racing on the finish line that pulls me
Mm-hmm.
along. Mental strength, hard workouts. A lot of times, if I'm, let's say, running on a cold day, I think, are my competitors out there on a shitty day like
Mm-hmm.
today? That's like an advantage. Um, a hard workout, same thing. So I feel like the mental piece has always been a strength of mine. Um, but early on, my struggles were fear, fear of open water swimming, and I'm a strong swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do work to overcome that. Um, but the mental piece, just focusing on the good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like compartmentalizing has always been something that's worked well for me, especially running. I always feel like I can swim, I can do the bike, and now the run,
Mm-hmm.
but breaking it down mile by mile, or even sometimes, one phone pole to the next phone pole to
Yep.
get through, just the little tricks.
Yep.
And when I'm, really like on the struggle bus, counting my steps per minute or per 30 seconds. I've been known to do that. So I think I've learned a lot of good mental tips over the
Mm-hmm.
years that have helped.
Yeah, no, you've mentioned several in there, like the visualization,
Yep.
the kind of focusing on the small goals.
Yep.
Like if you're going to run an Olympic distance, let's say triathlon, you're not running a, a 10K, you're going to run, I want to run 1 mile and then 2 miles and then three. So
Right.
it's chunking it down,
Right.
but also a little bit of distraction in there, a little bit of let me not focus on the pain right now. Let me focus on
Right.
that pretty butterfly that just flew by. So,
Yeah, I can get distracted by a butterfly for sure. But even the breathing, I was doing a 5K race in December, and my husband was there and said, you're shallow breathing. And it kind of got my attention. So I've been focusing on the deep belly breathing
mhm,
recently. So, just there's always something you can work on. And, having that knowledge is powerful.
yeah.
If you're just out there and not paying attention and not using mental tricks,
Hmm.
um, it is hard, and I'm almost 67 years old. It
Wow.
doesn't get any easier.
Right.
So, knowing what your strengths and your struggles are, you have to work on them,
Yep.
both sides.
Yeah.
So
No, great.
that's me.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was one in the chat. I don't know if you can see
Oh,
it, Pat.
sorry. I didn't,
It's okay. I'll say it. It's from Karen. She said a lot of what Jane says, and then focusing on what it feels like when she's done. Dot dot dot. Hot shower and a cup of coffee.
there you go. I love it. I know when I'm doing hard races, I focus on what I'm going to eat when I'm done. And almost always I'm picturing a bagel with peanut butter and pretzel sticks is my go-to. So awesome. Um, but yeah, and everybody's touching on some good things, which is we also have to practice this stuff beforehand, even on the hard training days. The hard training days are a great time to practice our mental skills. So, all right. So, as I said here, taming the mental beast starts before race day. We don't tame the mental beast. We don't calm the anxiety. We don't calm the angry self-talk in that moment. We have to prepare for it. Just like if you're preparing for a race, you don't, well, I hope you don't just show up kind of unfed, unslept, you got to take care of it beforehand. So, so I look at what we call body mind community. In mental health, it's biopsychosocial, bio being body. So we have to take care of our body, which we're going to get to. The psycho is the mind, which we're also going to talk about, and then community. If we can take care of these three things, we can go into a race ready to race our best race, whatever our best race looks like. My best race might not be Hunter's best race. Those we have to come in comparing ourselves to ourselves, not to others. So just first off with body, and I'm not going to be saying anything that's earth shattering. You're not going to walk away going, oh my God, this was absolutely brilliant. No, this is pretty basic, but it's basic because it's important. Unfortunately, a lot of people, and I'm not saying necessarily the people in this group, but a lot of people don't focus on these because our body, we have to take care of our sleep. We have to take care of our nutrition and we have to have movement. However, for endurance athletes, I'm always cautious to say, we also have to make sure we're moving the right amount, not over moving, because overtraining actually, and it is quite a risk for endurance athletes. So, but for sleep, a lot of women, a lot of endurance athletes, a lot of people, the first thing to go is sleep. Oh, I need to get in more training, so now I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. Or for the moms out there, how am I supposed to sleep when I got a sick kid at home, or I'm balancing work and training and the kids and family? So really look at how can we prioritize that and how can we make sleep, quite honestly, as important as any of our training days. And looking at, is there a way to even get just an extra 15 or 20 minutes? Because it's in sleep that our body repairs itself. It's in sleep that all that hard work that you've done for training really gets kind of incorporated. Nutrition, obviously you got to eat, your proteins, your fats, your carbs. With nutrition also goes hydration. And hydration is vitally important for mood. There was some research that I'm going to forget the specifics, but essentially these researchers studied two different groups of people. One they called underhydrators, so they drank less than 1.5 liters of water / hydration a day. And they studied overhydrators, those who drank more than 1.5 liters. And the baseline was the overhydrators had better mood, better concentration, better frustration tolerance, less anxiety, whereas the underhydrators were more anxious, more depressed, more easily agitated. And then for the research, what they did was they had the two groups essentially switch. So for a period of time, the underhydrators were kind of greatly encouraged to overhydrate, and the overhydrators were greatly encouraged to underhydrate. And they found the same thing. When the overhydrators went to underhydrating, they became cranky, they became anxious, they became depressed, they became irritable. Whereas those low hydrators, when they high hydrated, they became less anxious, less depressed. So the reason I'm saying that is whenever I'm out on a bike ride or doing triathlons or whatever, something I encourage people is if you start to notice a shift in your mood when you're out there on a hard training day or on a racing day and you notice your mood slipping, reach down, grab that bottle and take a drink, and put some food in you because you probably need some calories and you probably need some hydration. So that's my first tip is on a race day, if you're feeling grumpy, if you're feeling irritable, if you're feeling anxious, if you're on that bike, reach between your legs, grab that bottle and take a drink. Any questions about body right now or any thoughts of what I just said? I'm seeing people nodding, so I'm thinking that you're like, oh yeah, this kind of makes sense. I see it in my life and in my athletes and stuff. Cool. And then so instead of going to mind next, I'm going to jump to community because we're going to spend a good amount of time on mind. Community is vitally important. Humans, we are social animals. Um, as the most recent Surgeon General had pointed out, I forget if it was last year or 5 years ago, that we have an epidemic of loneliness, and that loneliness is as detrimental to our health as smoking like a pack or two of cigarettes a day. Because we see the mortality rates change when there's loneliness. We see people's health overall decrease when there's loneliness. We also have a harder time coping with problems when we don't have community. So that's the beautiful thing of what you all have here is a community, where you can support each other, you can help each other out. That if you're all out there on a race course at the same time and you see somebody else, you can kind of give them a, hey, atta girl, way to go, you've got this. And it gives them an extra boost, right? But it's also in training, it's the encouragement, it's the belief in one another's, because sometimes we have to lend our hope and our belief to somebody else. So that's kind of where the community comes in. And I don't know about you, but I oftentimes feel uplifted on course when I tell somebody else, good job. So I'm saying it for them. I'm like, you're looking awesome. You're so strong. You're going to get up this hill. Let's kick this hill's ass, right? I feel good, even though what I'm trying to do is help them feel good. So, um, and the other thing about community I like to encourage athletes to do is kind of look at who's on your team. And on one hand, I do literally mean your team, like this group here, but also who's on your personal team. So like on my team, for example, is like, and my team are the people that believe in me. I'm not going to have my non-believers on this team. But so my team is my wife. She's my number one cheerleader. I have my coach. I have a friend of mine who helps me out with nutrition. I have my parents who I don't care what I do. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread, which is really quite awesome. I'm like, hey, Dad, I went to work today. That's just so wonderful, Trisha. You are just helping so many people. This is so great. And I'm like, I showed up at an office. Um, but, so who's on your team? And the reason I want you to kind of take a note of who's on your team is to think about what is it that they believe about you. So again, sometimes on those hard rides, on those hard races, when that self-doubt's starting to creep in, sometimes it's helpful to think, okay, my wife is waiting for me at the aid station and she knows I can make it. And I know she would tell me to keep going. Or my friend Michelle, who's my nutritionist, she'd be like, okay, I know Michelle thinks I can do this, but she would tell me to eat a gel. So I'd bet damn well better eat a gel right now. So it's thinking about who are these people. And even though they're not physically with you out there on the race course, they're with you in between your ears. They're whispering to you of what to do. So I definitely encourage you to kind of look at who's on your team. What would they say? Does that make sense? I hope. Okay. I'm curious, does anybody do that? Like, does anybody think about what would other people say to me or kind of have taken note of who's on your team?
I think for me, there's like two things. There's one where you know whoever is there with you, my husband, my parents, and like, but not knowing when you're gonna see them next. So it's like kind of exciting. You're like, where am I gonna be running? And I hear my name and they're yelling for me.
Mhm.
Um, and then the other thing is I like know, especially because of this group, how many people for Ironman are on the Ironman tracker following me. And I think that gives me like a little motivation too. Like I cross the mat and I'm like, that notification just went off on like a bunch of phones right now. And like that gives me like a little boost.
Awesome. Thank you. How about others? Who else is on your teams and what do they say or what do you believe? No? Okay.
I think I was going to say, I think sometimes being an example for my kids, or you know, I want them to be proud of me, but I also want them to see that I'm so proud of myself for whatever I'm doing, and I'm so happy. Um, that's motivating, I think, sometimes.
Hmm.
Uh,
Awesome. Yeah. So who are you being an example to, which is wonderful.
mhm.
I love that. Yeah. All right. Cool. Um, yeah, the team is just I was just thinking as I was describing this, there's a gravel race called Unbound, which is a big one. And I've done the 100 miler twice. And Unbound is self-supported. So you bring your all of your nutrition, your food and everything, but they have checkpoints where your loved ones can meet you or your team can meet you and kind of essentially restock you. Um, so the last time I did it was 2 years ago, and I got to the checkpoint was like mile 50 or 60. And I'm out there at like mile 30, and I'm like, this just sucks because it started downpouring, and the road, it's dirt roads, so the dirt roads are now muddy. We're in the middle of Kansas, so there's like nothing but fields. I'm like, I feel like I'm Dorothy and Wizard of Oz here. Um, and what kept me going was 20 more miles, and I see my wife's name is Elise. I'm like, 20 more miles, and I see Elise. 20 more, 15 more miles. I can do 15 miles. I've done 15 miles an awful lot, and I'll see Elise. And then Jane, you talked about chunking things. I was like, all right, in 15 miles, I get to see Elise. And at that point, we decide if I keep going and finish the race or if I quit, you know. So yeah, the community was so important that day. Um, Anybody else? Any other thoughts on that? No? Okay. All right, so now the mind. So we're going to get into kind of the mental side, although I think all of this actually is the mental side, but um, so I like to look at kind of what are we doing before the race, like in the days leading up to the race, and then what are we doing on race day? Those are kind of two separate yet connected things, right? So before race day, obviously you're going to be doing nutrition and sleep and you're going to be fueling well and all that good stuff. But before the race, like the day before, maybe 2 days before, literally write things down. Get a sheet of paper and write this down. Because writing things down slows our thoughts down, which helps us actually think clearer. But reflect on, why am I doing this event? Why did I sign up for this Ironman? Why did I sign up for this 3 mile ocean swim? Why did I sign up for this 10K? Why did I sign up for this 100-mile bike race? But really look at that why and dig into it a little bit. It's not just, oh, I want to qualify for Ironman World Championships. I want to qualify to go to Nice or Kona. Okay, why? Why do you want to go to that? Why do you want to qualify for that? Um, maybe it's I want to prove to my kids what I can do. Maybe it's I want to show my body what I can do. Maybe it's I just love being out there and challenging myself. But really looking at that why, because that why is what's going to get you through the hard times. And if you're doing an Ironman, there's going to be hard times. It's, you know, it's a long day. Also, before the race, look at what do you think will be some challenging situations? So, looking at what's the race course? What's the weather? What do you think will be some of the hardest parts? So, like when I did Ironman Lake Placid, and I knew the hardest part was going to be on the run, on the out and back of what's that, River Road or whatever that is, where It's essentially 6 miles of loneliness, right? With nobody cheering for you, just to like 2 aid stations, I think. And I knew that was going to be because I'm somebody that feeds off of others. So I had to come up with a mental plan of how am I going to get through that. So if I'm doing um, it, what I didn't put in here is also what do you think are going to be the times where your strengths get to shine? So also just Ironman Lake Placid. I knew, right, and I know I am a strong swimmer. I knew that that swim, I was going to own the swim. So kind of going as like, all right, I'm going to own the swim, and here's where I'm going to feel great, and here's where I'm going to feel crappy is on this run, and here's how I'm going to kind of handle both. When you have these challenging situations, also kind of plan ahead. What do you say to yourself? What do you say to yourself on on hard training days? I think Jane, you were kind of saying, it's um, not everybody is out here. I on the hard training days, you're like, who else is out here in the snow? I'm out here. On the race days, it's like, well, I'm going faster than everybody else on their couch. I might not be winning the race, but I'm beating everybody that's sitting down. Um, I practice what I'm going to say to myself when I'm out bike riding. So, like on the hills, what do I usually say to myself when I'm on a really hard hill? What do I focus on? And I like to have these things, again, I write them down because then I remember them better.
Hmm.
I also like to review what if situations so I'm not completely caught off guard. What if I get a flat tire? What if my goggles are kicked off my head? What if I get a foot cramp on the swim? What if I get a side stitch on the run? What if my bottle on the bike falls off and I lose my nutrition? And I go through realistic what if situations. In the Unbound Facebook group last year, somebody posted, how many extra chains do you bring with you on the bike in case your chain breaks? I'm like, you bring 2 chain links, and if your chain breaks more than once, you quit. If it breaks once, you fix it. It breaks twice, you call it a day. You realize that's a sign from whatever power, and you go get a beer. How many extra chains? Come on, people. But so yeah, I want to review realistic what if situations. And the reason, again, we want to review this is we want to have kind of a plan already ready to go. Because on race day, you're already going to be tired. You are using your energy. You woke up at some ungodly hour. You got yourself to the race venue. You started at some early hour, and now you're using all this physical energy. And now all of a sudden, you get a flat tire. And unless you've gone through it, unless you've planned for it, making a decision of how to fix that flat tire is not going to come easily. Does that make sense? I hope, of these kind of what if situations and realistic kind of what if situations. Awesome. And if possible, practice these what if situations, well beforehand. I know tires expensive, so I don't expect you to go out and like poke holes in your tires and then try to fix them. But if you're getting ready to change your tires, do it. Poke a hole in your tire and see if you know how to fix a flat. Hopefully you're riding tubeless and the sealant will do its magic. And then also before race day, look back over the past, let's say, year, maybe 6 months, whatever, and look at what successes have you had, especially in training. And look at, my hill climbing has gotten a lot better. I really conquered, there's a hill near us. It's called Palatine Hill. It's 19%. It's only 19% for a short period, but it's like 15% for about a mile or so. So it's short, but you're on it. So it's looking at, okay, I climbed that hill. I did this. My swim is a little bit faster. Or even I persevered on that rainy day, I was out there and I did it. So related to that, I actually ask athletes to once a week just write down your successes. Put it in your training peaks. Put it keep a journal, put it, on your phone. But what successes did you have this week? And the successes simply could be, I followed my training plan. The success actually could be, I didn't feel good that day and I actually chose not to do the workout. You know, a success does not always have to be about hitting a certain power number. And yes, Hunter, definitely, if I lived closer, I'd be coming to your Fix a Flat clinics. Um,
No, we have this woman, she's great. Her and her husband own a shop and they save the old tires. And so we can just like beat them up with the plug kits and stuff. It's awesome.
that is awesome. I ha I have to say the only time I've ever fixed a flat, knock on wood, was not my flat. There was some poor triathlete on his TT bike. He got lost and he was on one of the gravel roads and he had just gotten the bike and he did not know that with tubeless tires that you use a lower pressure. So he had his PSI was like 100 or 110 and he hit a rock and he's damn near in tears. And I'm like, don't worry, I'll save the day. I'm on my gravel bike. And if you know gravel bikes, we pack everything. Like I'm ready for you need a flat, I got you. You need a snack, I've got you. I've got extra fluids. I probably have a rain poncho. So I fixed this flat. I was like, okay. That's the only flat I've ever had to fix. So cool. All right. So that's before race day. Any questions, any thoughts about that? And is this helpful so far? Are we okay, cool. So during the race, we've kind of already talked a bit about self-talk. But self-talk is kind of the real company we have out there. And like it or not, our internal narrator is going quite often. She can be quite loquacious. She can talk quite a bit. And what I find is a lot of people, when they start to struggle, that's when the negative self-talk starts to come in. It's all of a sudden, oh, I'm not going. It goes from I'm not hitting the power numbers I wanted to I suck. I should have never done this. I'm a horrible person. Why, God, why? Right? Um, and so what I encourage people to do is let's focus on the self-talk that's helpful. And I'm not into lying to myself. Like I'm not going to say I'm the best gravel cyclist out here. I'm not going to say I'm going to win this race. But what I am going to tell myself is I'm usually in instruction or motivation. So the instruction is, okay, to get up this hill, I have to pedal. So I'm going to focus just on pedaling. And literally, I'll just say over and over again, pedal, 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 pedal. And then I'll get to the top of the hill. I'm like, woo, that was great. Or focus on your cadence. It's what a coach would say to you if they were kind of standing next to you. Focus on, with swimming, focus on your frame. This is my swim space. This is my swim space. This is my swim space. The next type is motivation. So like a cheerleader. You've got this, you're strong, you are climbing this hill. Look at you climbing this hill. You have got this. The motivation sometimes is hard if you're not able to do the thing you want to do. Like I did a bike race once, farmer's daughter in New York, and there was just a hill that just totally, totally kicked my butt. I'll be honest with you. I was off my bike and I was pushing it up the hill. But my motivational self-talk was, I'm moving forward under my own power, whether next to my bike or on my bike, I am moving forward. You know, so that's the motivation. And then neutral is just simply a way to distract yourself from whatever negative thoughts might be coming in. And so for me, what I do is I name things. I name what I see. I see turtles on a log. I see a bird flying overhead. I see a cyclist in a blue jersey. Anything to take my thoughts from inside of me to outside of me. Because if my thoughts stay inside of me at that moment, they're just going to go darker to darker to darker. Because that's the way negative self-talk goes. And then again, sometimes I'll actually give myself challenges. I bike a lot on a canal around here and it has a lot of turtles. If I'm having a bad day, I'm like, all right, I'm going to find a log with 4 turtles, you know, and then I'm biking. I'm like, oh, there's 4 turtles. I'm like, all right, can I beat that? Can I find 5 turtles? You know, so is it self-talk in the true sense of you've got this girl or keep pedaling? No, but it's self-talk that has silenced the negative talk. I hope that, are we cool with that? All right, cool. Any thoughts on that? I'm curious how, if you all use that.
I think I do when I'm racing, I do a lot of the motivation. So
Hmm.
sometimes I even like talk out loud. Like I am on my bike just like chattering away to myself.
Hmm.
Um the and I would say in training is more of like the instruction. Like
Hmm.
thinking about the form and especially running because I focused a lot on my run form last year, so that's like kind of like in the front of my mind right now.
Okay, very cool. And I can see you probably also using a little bit of that, like if you're on the run and you notice your form starting to slip. You might be like, okay, focus on be tall. I don't actually have no idea what you do when you run well. It's just, just keep going. But whatever it is, you say that 1 or 2 things, focus on your posture. Good, go. So yeah, awesome. So Jane, I think you had something you're going to say.
Well, I was thinking of the neutral talk, self-talk. This sounds really crazy, but if I'm out on a long bike ride, my husband's gotten away from me. I was thinking when we were training on the Patriot half iron course in Massachusetts, I play the alphabet game. I'm tired. I just want to finish. I find letters in street names. It's
Hmm.
just, it's how my brain works. I play words with friends online. So I'll be out there, in the middle of Massachusetts. Oh, there's a B in that street name just to get me to the end, of the finish of the ride. So that's my neutral, I don't want to say, oh, I'm tired, my legs are tired. I'll keep my pace going. I'm paying attention for, safety reasons, but
Hmm.
it's just a mind game to get me through the ride. I'm out there
Excellent.
by myself. So that's my neutral
No,
self.
I love it. I love it.
I'm
That's my
I'm
weirdness.
stealing I'm stealing
Okay.
that idea, Jane. I
Karen,
love that.
I know we're on the
I
same
love that.
wavelength.
So I was thinking that in all the training and the biking and stuff, there's always experiences that I think I bank for later. Like
Hmm.
I raced on a day when it was pouring down rain. I didn't want to go, but I did it. Or I climbed that hill when it hurt. And so
Hmm.
then later, like I even think at that moment, like just save this. You're going to need this at some point. And then 6 months later, you're doing a ride you don't think you can finish. You're like, wait a second, I did that one time when I raced when I didn't want to, or it was
Yeah,
raining. And I just try during the self-talk stuff to be like, you can do this. You've
that's
Hmm.
done
right.
stuff that's harder than this before. So
That's right.
just kind of keeping a bank of things you can tell yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so it's tracking those successes.
Hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah. All righty. I love those ideas, by the way. Those are all great. I also I'm not sure if this is nice or not, but I'm hoping it is. I make up stories about people around me. So, and they're all nice stories. Like, so I live, like I said, in central New Jersey. I live near Rutgers University, and then we have a towpath, a canal towpath that goes from here down past Princeton to Trenton, and then it goes north up to New Hope, Pennsylvania, and beyond. So when I'm starting to hit the Princeton area, the stories I'm telling about myself, about these people around me, I'm like, oh, she must be a nuclear physicist who works at the physics lab. And oh, I wonder what type of Princeton economic professor this person is. They probably are none of those things, but I'm like, I have made up the biggest, like they have a whole life in my head that they don't know about, which is maybe crazy. I'm not sure. I hope not, but just don't tell them, okay? Um,
Sounds creative to me, like you might be a novelist in the making.
I might be. I
Yeah.
might be. And I also talk out loud to myself. So maybe I'll just start recording a novel on my phone as I'm biking. Cool. Um, So now also during the race, this is kind of in the moment. And this is a tool I happen to love. All right. I use this tool in racing, in real life. I taught this tool to kids. I've taught this tool to adults. And it is called runner. I know it's spelled runer, but we're going to pronounce it runner because, like you just pointed out, I'm creative. And so runner, it's essentially, so in mental health speak, this is a way to re-regulate yourself. It's a way to kind of calm yourself. And so runner stands for recognize, understand, name, explore, and then respond. And so recognize is simply recognizing what you're feeling physically, and also recognize that you're feeling something emotionally. So recognize my shoulders are tight, my jaw is tight, my quads feel heavy. Like whatever it is, just recognize it. You're not judging it. You're not saying, "Oh my God, it's so horrible. I can't believe my shoulders are way up here. They should be down here." No, it's just, "Oh, shoulders are tight. Okay." Um, understand. Try to understand why you're feeling this way. Again, without judgment. It could be, well, it's a little bit chilly out. You know, I didn't get to warm up quite as well as I wanted, or I warmed up, but then I had to wait like an hour before hopping in the water, to start the race. I got behind in my nutrition, like whatever, look at the situation kind of as an outsider and understanding why you're feeling this way. Then you want to name it. So I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling happy. I don't want to stick to all the negative emotions, but I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling anxious. And then with that, we can then explore what are our options. And a lot of athletes hate it when I start off with this example, but one of our options is quitting. You could be like, okay, my legs hurt, my shoulders hurt, I'm kind of cramping up. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. It's taking longer than I thought. I could quit. That is one option. Option two is I could have a drink. Option three is maybe I slow down for a few pedal strokes and get some food and get a drink and I keep going. Maybe option four is on the next flat, I kind of stand up and wiggle to get blood flowing throughout my body. So you go through the different options of what you actually can do. And then you choose to respond. So you're responding, not reacting at this point, because reacting is just kind of something happens and then you react very quickly. So with this, it slows us down. It slows us down mentally. It doesn't necessarily slow us down physically, but it slows us down mentally. And it allows you to make a choice. So an example of how I used this with an outcome, quite honestly, I didn't want was 2 years ago. There's a gravel race called Dirty Kitten. Highly recommend it. If you're into gravel biking, highly recommend Dirty Kitten. It's in Virginia, Northern Virginia, and it's 20-mile loops on all dirt roads. And it's always the very last weekend of July, and it's always as hot as the sun. So 2 years ago, I'd signed up for the 60-miler, so 3 loops. I did the first loop. Things were great. And at the end of each loop, you refill. You have your cooler there, you refill. I go off. And about 15 minutes into the beginning of the second loop, I got a very sudden, very painful headache. Like it wasn't a slow onset. And I was like, well, shit, this is not good. So I kind of, at that point, I was like, all right, I'm recognizing I have a headache. I'm understanding it is hot out. I'm understanding that maybe I didn't finish my hydration like I wanted to. I had 2 bottles on the bike and I only finished 1.5, or I only finished 1. I named it. I'm feeling a bit scared that, maybe I'm getting heat stroke. And then I explored. I can quit right now, which isn't an option really. I could finish this loop. I could stop, refuel myself, and then keep going. And then what I chose was simply to take a drink, eat a payday bar, and keep going. And then when I got done that second loop, I did this process again, but this time with my wife was right there. I was like, look, here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm thinking. Um, Here are the options. And then together we decided I would quit the race because we're like, I think I'm starting to have heat stroke. And I'm like, I don't want to definitely have heat stroke. I don't want to be in the hospital. Um, so we used it that time. And again, it's an outcome I didn't want. I wanted to finish a race. However, because I was able to do this, I'm content with my decision to stop the race. Does that make sense? I hope. And I've used it in other races where I did finish, where I did make some changes and kept going. So, any thoughts of runner or how you might use it? Or would you use it?
I like the idea of exploring more options, right? I think in the heat of the moment, it's easy to be like, I don't know, you're like go-to things, right? But like, what are the other options?
Right. Because there's always more options. Yeah.
Right. And then I
I
think too,
think
like what I would tell my clients, I'm like, look at it from another perspective, right? And that's where I think like you like use your wife a lot, right? Where it's like, okay, this is my view of it. What's like the
Yeah.
regular person's view of
Right.
it that's not in this race?
Right. And I use my wife a lot because she's not an endurance athlete. She's not going to be the one that's going to be like, yeah, keep pushing, keep going. She's going to be like, yeah, we don't need to go to the hospital. But she also, like when I did the Unbound one, when I got to her and I'm wet and I'm cold and I'm miserable, she looked at me. She's like, well, can you finish the race? I said, yeah. She goes, then go finish the race. So Karen, I think you were going to say something.
I just was going to say your example too shows that sometimes you need to look at the big picture as well. And in some instances, the big picture says we're done here.
Yeah.
You kind of weigh the options. And sometimes, like you just said, you got inspiration, like I can do it, so let me do it. But I just think sometimes we need an outside perspective to say, look at the big picture. And I think the runner, this is really, I think this is fascinating. And I think that could help us do that when we're out there
Awesome.
for trying to perform.
Yeah. No, thanks. And again, you can also use this in real life, not just on the bike. If your spouse pisses you off, recognize what's happening, understand what's happening, explore. Um, but again, the whole thing is it's slowing us down to actually let us see our options. So, all right. And then finally, this is kind of the end here. I have a website if you guys want, and it's gettingyourmindingear.com. And on it, you can actually get a copy of Runner, and I have it kind of broken down of what it is, what the steps are. That one's free. You just have to sign up for my newsletter, and then you get it. And then on the left and the right, you'll see 3P2R and Coach's Couch. Those are both essentially workbooks. 3P2R is a model I kind of created for going into a race. And the 3Ps are plan, prepare, perform, and then 2Rs are recover, review. So it's kind of the steps that an athlete would take to go to a race. And I really do break down a lot of stuff in there. And then the Coach's Couch is actually just the presentation I did this weekend, but this is the workbook for it. And it's all about motivational interviewing and different questions that you can use and ask. And it explains the 5 stages of change and explains, ambivalence and curiosity and autonomy. It has a lot of stuff. So I would greatly appreciate it if, the very least sign up for my newsletter for Runner. I don't over email you. I email the newsletter once a month. If I'm selling something like I just did the Coach's Couch, people did get like 3 emails from me. Tried not to spam. Yeah. And also if you're on Instagram, I'd love it if you followed me. Just it'd help out a lot. And then if you do buy 3P2R or the Coach's Couch, they're each $15. But for you wonderful people, I have a code for 25% off It's wow 25, very creative. And that code is good until the end of February. So, um, any thoughts, any questions, any feedback?
I loved this. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
always like appreciate too, like I'm an LPC, right? Like
Cool.
same field, right? But then it's like just hearing different people's like way they explain it, I think is
Mhm.
helpful sometimes. Like, oh yeah, right? And they're like thinking of like how I use that in practice. Um, but yeah, good reminders. And that's what like when you said at the beginning, you were like, none of this is rocket science. Like I say that all the time, but I'm like, what I'm trying to do is just put it in the forefront of your mind, like reminding you that we need to do this.
Right. And it's not rocket science, but it's important.
Yeah.
Even the rocket scientists need to go to sleep at night, you know? Yeah, no, awesome. Very cool. Um, any other thoughts, questions? Jane, I see you have your microphone on. Don't know if you want to say something or if you're just like, no, I'm getting ready to say goodnight to everybody. And
I want to say thank you. It was very interesting and I appreciate it. The questions you ask yourself before the event, thought provoking for sure. Like,
Mhm.
why am I doing this? The
Right,
big joke is always, it seemed like a good idea when I signed up. You hear that a lot. 6 months
yeah,
later, you're there going, why did I sign up? But no, I think they're good questions to ask yourself. So I like that part a lot.
very
I
good.
think those questions too, you can apply to almost like your decision making. Like I'm in this weird year where I'm like not having a coach and doing all these like life things and like what do I really want to do and why do I want to like and so I think those are important to reflect on even when like I don't really have a plan right now. Like I have an outline, but like why do I think I have to do 270.3s a year, right? Like
Right,
reflecting on that. So, yeah, I think I like those even for now when I don't have a race I'm training for in the next couple months.
awesome. Yeah, no, it is important to look back on what's our why. Why are we doing what we're doing, whatever it is, whether it be doing 70.3s or why am I in private practice? You know, why do I enjoy doing what I do? So it's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. Any other, I also don't want to shortchange anybody. I just want to make sure everybody had a chance to say whatever they wanted to say or cool.
And thanks for doing the discount. I'll definitely share this.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah.
And also I'm also available if anybody has any questions later, just shoot me an email. It's all my email. Hunter has it, but it's also on my website. Um, I'm more than happy to talk over a situation or to just, say, hey, Pat, you said this, but I thought it made sense, but when I tried to put it into practice, it really didn't. You know, Shoot me an email. We'll find time to talk. Um, because I really do want to be a support to endurance athletes, especially female endurance athletes, is my true passion. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I
Thank
appreciate
you and good luck with
sharing.
you're doing Unbound this year too?
I am not doing Unbound this year. This year, my race calendar is I am doing Swamp Fox Gravel Fondo in South Carolina in March. It's very, very, very flat, which is my strength, but very, very, very sandy.
Ooh.
So there's that. And then I'm doing Dirty Kitten again. I'm doing the 60 miler. I did finish it last year, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm going to do unpaved 50 miler in Pennsylvania
Yeah.
over Columbus Day weekend.
I've
So,
heard some good stuff about Pennsylvania gravel, but I haven't explored it much.
oh, it's amazing. It's really good. It's very hilly. Um, I highly, highly recommend unpaved. It was started by Celine Yeager and her husband.
Yeah.
Um, and the atmosphere is amazing. Um, the 50 and 90 and 120 all start at the same place. The 30 miler starts somewhere else, but the finish line is just it's just fun. Like you finish and then they give you a whoopie pie. And last year we finished and it was at a YMCA and the YMCA lets us take showers there so you don't have to sit in your nasty chamois all day long.
Nice.
Uh, there's a cookout. They have vegetarian food. They had meat food. It was just quite the vibe.
Cool.
if you guys end up doing, anybody does unpaved, let me know because I'll be there this year.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, good luck. We have a woman doing like a whole bunch of really long bike packing races in Florida right now, and she talks about the sand a lot.
yeah,
And she redid her whole rig this year just to ride in the sand for these three races.
yeah. You don't think that flat is going to be hard, but you put sand in and it's like, why
Yeah.
am I not moving forward?
Wow.
I'll have to check some of those out. So good luck. I just like get stuck in New England, right? There's a lot here for gravel.
No,
So
yeah, I used to do, my parents live in Niantic, so I've done the Niantic Bay Triathlon,
yeah,
I don't know, multiple times. So
yeah. That's a
now I don't run anymore, so I just go there and cheer people on. So,
there you go. That's
so
awesome. Well,
awesome.
thank you so much. It
Thank
was
you. I
great
appreciate
chatting
it.
with you. And I'll share your information in our newsletter and stuff like that so people have it.
I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a
All
great
right.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Bye.
night.